Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Roundup. We're just about 2 weeks away from Retro World Expo, and there are going to be so many fun things there. And one of the things I wanted to mention right away is Tito from Macho Nacho Productions is once again bringing some of the projects from his videos to sell at the booth. So that's going to be awesome. It's going to be a rare opportunity to pick up something that you've seen modded on the channel. And also, Koala Koa is going to be bringing some of the M3 Mister kits. So if you wanted to check one of those out, if you wanted to just buy one right there, you have the ability to. But I think that's awesome, because at the very least, you should come check out the packaging and how it really feels like a console. I thought that was really neat. So if you're looking for that stuff, there's going to be a bunch more at the booth. I already talked about the craziness Steve from RetroTech and I are going to be doing to a Sony consumer grade CRT, but I'll give you another update next week. I just kind of wanted to throw that teaser out there to let everybody know it's going to be a fun one, and come check all this stuff out. But let's see what we got going this week. First up, the site romhacking.net is no longer accepting new submissions and has currently switched to read-only. So in case you're unaware, which I'm sure most people listening have probably used romhacking.net, that was a site that was one main repository for any patches that have different hacks for existing games that are out there, or even new games based on existing games' backbone. So you download the patches from them, never the whole ROM, which is why they were able to survive this long. And it was a really great resource for all of the very awesome enhancements for different games. But the creator of the site has decided that they don't want to maintain it anymore. So there are a bunch of other alternatives popping up. All of them seem pretty cool. It's just one of those things where there's a ton of drama surrounding it, which none of it's any of my business. I don't mean that in a good way or a bad way. I don't really have any affiliation with any of them. And I don't really know what the whole story is. I just know that it's switched over to read-only for now, which is good. That means that everybody's existing work is still there. And there are other platforms popping up from people who are they themselves ROM hackers that want to see this stuff hosted. So, it's sad to see a site that so many of us have relied on go down like this, but at the same time, it doesn't appear to be something that's going to just... It's not like the owner deleted the site and walked away like has happened before. It seems like one of those things that we could transition over to something else and kind of make it work. But, for the almost 20 years that romhacking.net existed, I think it was a great resource. And while, no site's perfect and, no group gets everything right, I think overall they did a good job supporting us, the people who wanted to use these ROM hacks. So, if you want to check out Alex's post, it's very to the point. I mean that in a nice way, no drama, nothing like that. It does include some of the discussions back and forth, but, I think that's kind of the perfect way for me to approach this. Here's a level-headed, just what's going on. If you want to read Alex's post, which gets a little bit more into it, but also is level-headed, cool. And then, of course, if you want to dip your toes in the drama, go ahead, but that's not what you're going to get here. The made-for-Dreamcast film Birdcage of Horrors was recently patched so that you could just watch it on your Dreamcast and experience it the same way you would have back in the day. I saw Derek post about this on Twitter, and I was like, wow, this is really awesome. What the heck is this? So I think it's best if I just read Derek's post, because I couldn't think of a better way to sum this up. Birdcage of Horrors is a horror film produced and published by Sega. It was released between September and July of '99, taking the form of 6 multimedia GD-ROM discs. While the format and structure of the discs isn't technically mil-CD, they do leverage Sega's own mil-CD playback software. The film was available exclusively through the Dreamcast Direct online service and was uniquely presented in 365 one-minute episodes across each of the 6 discs. Each episode became available gradually over a year from October 1st, 1999 to October 1st, 2000. Originally, viewers had to connect their Dreamcast to the internet daily and download special save files to their VMU to unlock new episodes. Additionally, each entry of it was only available to those who completed the previous chapters. That's insane. So think about that. You would have to log in every day. You'd have to have a Dreamcast and the online service, and you'd have to log in every day to get the next, or you'd miss them from then on. Shortly after the final episode was released, the service went offline, so until now, to watch the entire film, one was required to use a special VMU save file or extract the videos from the disk image itself for external playback. But by applying these patches to all 6 discs, you could experience them in their entirety without any special save file or without the need for anyone to magically restore the now long dead servers that had previously been used to unlock it. So these patches currently do nothing to translate any of the video content, but now because this is available, it might be tackled in the future by Derek or anybody else who wants to jump on this. Due to the file size of the FMVs, the patches currently only target the GDI dumps usable on both emulators and optical drive emulators, but if a translation patch should ever materialize, Derek's going to try to ensure burnable CDIs are available as well. So normally I really try to put my own spin on all of these posts, but sometimes I just got to say it right from the experts because there's no way I could have summed it up better than Derek. So thanks for writing the post, because I think so many people were like me going, what is this? This looks neat. What's the story behind it? And that's it. So much appreciated, Derek. Thanks for doing that. And maybe a translation will come with it. I can't imagine it's going to be the most exciting movie I've ever seen, but unique is certainly a cool way to describe it. And I'd love to see it translated so I could know what's going on. There's been some 240p test suite updates. First, Artemio showed pictures of the N64 version in progress, and while it's about 80% ready for a public beta release, it is moving along, which is absolutely awesome because these tools are things that I rely on daily for these consoles and for other things, which I'll get to in a minute. But it's very awesome to see it move to another platform, and thanks to everybody who contributes to that. And check out the post. By the way, all of the 240p Test Suite Patreon posts are public, so check out the N64 post for news on how Artemio was able to accomplish all that, the other tools that were available, and of course we'll let everybody know when a public beta is available to download. Also, the Wii and GameCube versions of the test suite have just been updated with things like the disappearing logo test, which is absolutely crucial for lag testing, whether you're using a photodiode or a high-speed camera like the one I use. That's a really important tool, especially for people that want to test total latency, controller, display, everything. There's also phase and video sample rate test for dialing in optimal timings. And there's updates to the lag test, monoscope pattern, and MD Fourier for audio testing, of course. Now, the lag test is one that was really a roller coaster ride over the past week or so. And thanks to Artemio and Fudo, I was able to kind of get a pretty cool workflow done for testing things like deinterlacing. I'm not going to get too off topic here, but deinterlacing takes each field of a 480i interlaced video and separates that or combines it. But for the purpose of what we do in video games and a lot of the other in home movies and stuff, separates each field to its own frame, and then uses the information from the previous and next frame to kind of rebuild that. And I was wondering if the counter test, so the lag test that counts each frame, would have an independent number for each field. And it does. So that was awesome. That was a perfect way to test which deinterlacing methods were working properly, which were just dropping frames, which, side note, those Amazon crappy capture boxes that are supposed to be used for home videos drop half of the frames. They drop half the frame rate. So that was awesome. However, I ran into an issue where after using the updated version, I was getting blending between the numbers. And thanks to Fudo, we figured out that's just simply because of when I was burning that to different media to try to test it, I was running into 420 compression because of colors. So Artemio added a toggle where you could keep those numbers all in black and white, or have them change colors between frames in order to easily track it. So that was one of those things where it was just, while it might sound like I'm just rambling on about a project I've been working on, which I am, I'm also trying to make the point that these sets of tools are absolutely unbelievable, and they've helped me and many, many other people discover and test things that would have been so much harder without it. So just being able to show visually what 420 compression could do, so basically burning to a DVD, that alone is really neat because visual examples are so important for understanding stuff. But also just having a tool where I could easily count fields during a deinterlacing process is also awesome. So I just wanted to make the point and really drive it home that this isn't just for crazy people who want to calibrate their BVMs. This suite of different test tools have been just game changing for almost everything I do. So thanks to Artemio and everybody who contributes to these things for doing it. I really appreciate it. And I'm very much looking forward to the N64 version just to kind of mess around with that and see what we could do with N64s. Next up, RetroRGB has just released a new firmware update that adds wired USB support to previously wireless-only controllers. All of the V2 series of controllers that include the Origin, Legacy, and Tribute, the NES, SNES, and N64 themed ones, as well as the Big Six, Saturn Pro, Saturn, and Genesis controllers that were all 2.4 gig wireless. Those can now be plugged in via a USB cable, where previously you could charge and do firmware updates through that, but not use it in X input mode. And RetroRGB's also claiming the latency is only 4 milliseconds in wired USB mode, which is absolutely awesome. So a couple of thoughts on this. And first, the straight up good stuff. If it's actually 4 milliseconds, that's really cool. Now, if you're using your Mister or whatever else, you could use it in wireless mode while you're casually gaming. But if you have something that's very lag sensitive, or if you just don't even want to think about lag, plug in your USB cable, switch it over to X input mode, and now you have 4 milliseconds, which in the case of a total setup that's low latency, you could tell your brain that adding 4 milliseconds of latency is zero. If you have a really laggy panel or something like that, maybe you'd feel it, but in almost all scenarios, you should tell yourself that 4 milliseconds, not 4 frames, 4 milliseconds is basically zero. So that's great. Now you have that option. Also, I would really love to see members of the community test this out and post the results, especially anybody with a Mr. Lag test kit, because if that's true, that's actually lower latency than some of the wired versions of those controllers, which not a huge difference, but that's still a pretty neat thing. That's a cool bonus. Now you have a lot more functionality. And a few other wireless controllers they have are less latency, but when you're talking between 1 and 4 milliseconds, it's all basically zero at that point. If anybody tells you otherwise, they probably misheard. They mean well, I'm sure, but they're probably confusing frames and milliseconds, which is very, very common to hear. So I would definitely test for yourself and see. And also, I do want to defend RetroRGB's wording here. They said generally 4 milliseconds. And I think that might mean if you do a very strict test like the Mr. Latency test, you're going to get 4 milliseconds because that's testing with no other latency added. You're essentially just testing from the time the button is pressed to the time the end of the USB cable has a signal sent to it. And if that's true, that's correct. That is the right way to publish controller latency tests. It is not RetroRGB's responsibility if Nintendo adds or releases a firmware update that slows down the USB wired support on a Switch. It's not RetroRGB's problem if you plug it into a really slow Windows PC that has a ton of adware and spyware on it that's incredibly laggy. They just need to tell us what the latency of that controller is. And I think that's what they're doing. But I think we should all double check. And like I always say, to the point where I'm probably annoying all of you, if we verify good results and post them and talk about them on social media, that is nothing but positive. No company in the world would not want you to do that because you're just basically saying, yes, the company told the truth about how good the latency is on their controller. So if you have the ability to test, do so. I left links to the firmware update. And if you were interested, I left affiliate links to all the controllers that were in stock because why not, right? I'd be silly not to. So check out the post if you want more info. But I think this is awesome. And while I really stuck with their wired controllers, I think I would very seriously consider picking up like a Big Six or a Saturn Pro controller wireless now, knowing that I have the option of when I'm gaming in a pretty hardcore session, just plugging in the cable and having low latency. Now it's time for this week's Mr. Updates, care of Lou from Lou's Retro Source. As usual, I'm going to skim through these and stop and give my thoughts where I feel necessary. But if you want more info and visual examples, please check out Lou's video. First up, Taki Udon posted some more info about the D10 Nano alternative, and I'm all confused now. So the problem could very well be me. I'll admit that straight off and apologize if I'm getting any of this wrong. But a couple of months ago, Taki mentioned that the boards were done, but retail packaging was all that was left, and then posted a name that was pretty terrible. I just got to be honest, and said if we want to change the name, everything would have to be delayed. But then Taki just posted that what he's now calling Mr., the D10 clone, and all of the accessory boards are now at the SMT stage. So and also that the blank FPGA boards are in. I thought these were ready to go over a month ago, and all we were waiting on was packaging. But if the boards came in and now they're not even populated with components, what was that all about? Was that a mix-up? Was that just a communication issue? Because I could swear it was everything's done and will ship first week of July unless we have to change the name. So I don't know. Maybe I misunderstood about that one. Also, mentioned that they're seeing the pick and place machines for this. Maybe they're talking about just the accessories, but I believe they're showing the D10 Nano alternatives here in this picture as well. Also, Taki said that the lead times for getting PSUs for each region would delay the project launch by 5 days. So they're going to replace the PSU with something of equal or lesser value. So that means Taki never got the PSUs, even though they were supposedly all ready to go a month ago, other than the packaging. Maybe that was just another communication issue, but also that wouldn't delay the product launch by 5 days. If there's been no PSU testing, that would delay it by a long time because, as I've said till I'm blue in the face, PSUs are not things that should be taken lightly. At the very least, you could get a cheap one that underperforms your Mister, but they could also cause fires, they could cause long-term issues, they could wear out your equipment faster. With the USB power delivery, they could just blow out your equipment if you get really bad ones. So if there were no PSUs that were ever vetted for this, that's kind of strange. But also, Taki said instead of sending the PSU, and they'll replace it with either a 32 gigabyte micro SD card, a wireless mini combo, or keyboard, or a combo Wi-Fi Bluetooth adapter. And it looks like they chose the Wi-Fi Bluetooth adapter. But a good power supply is much more expensive than a Wi-Fi Bluetooth adapter. So what does that mean for all the prices that he's been saying? Did the prices never include a power supply? And if so, then my bad, then none of this matters. Was the price of just the full package the only thing that included a power supply? Or was this the first time power supplies were ever talked about? It could very well be that it was never intended to include a power supply at all, maybe just casually mentioned, because the only thing that I know for sure was Taki was saying different pigtail cables to make sure it was compatible with existing stuff, which was cool. That was when all of those changes were made at the last minute to accommodate for those. So I'm kind of confused. Maybe the power changes that I brought up and all of the dangers of having it the previous way is what caused the delay, which I would be very happy about. I know people are getting impatient and want to buy these things for all the right reasons, but that was a smart thing to change to make sure that people just don't start blowing out equipment. But I'm not really sure what to think about all this. I know a lot of people always just accuse me of being an annoying YouTuber who's a know-it-all, which is fair in many cases, but I actually have been a part of companies who did contract manufacturing and stuff like this for years, both when I worked in the medical field and also now that I've been still helping out people do the same thing in retro. So what Taki's doing, I do on a regular basis and have done. So maybe it was just a communication issue, but I would just end this section by saying, I really, really, really want this to succeed and be awesome. All of me wants this thing to just be really great, but I'm starting to get a little bit of red flags here, and I want to really dig in and test this before I start telling people, hey, just spend your money on this and make sure. It could just be that everything's perfect and you have to have a verified, tested power supply to make sure that you don't cause any harm, which is totally fine, but I don't know. I think there's enough red flags here for all of my 17 years of experience doing contract manufacturing that, I'm not really sure if this is going to be released in 5 days and what the power supply situation is going to be. So I don't mean this in a negative way or a positive way. I'm just kind of water's wet, fire's hot. Let's just wait and see what happens with this one. And, if people want to start drama about a cut and dry technical analysis of something, I deal with that every day. Have at it. Next up, Tim posted some new tap-to label design that you could write on and purchase from Tim or Wizzo. They're matte laminated for maximum durability, able to be written on with markers and pen, and are available in multiple colors. Wizzo's also working on implementing the alternate Sinden light gun cores. At the moment, to use the Sinden light gun, you have to have some dedicated cores that Andy created to display the border. So I thought that you could still kind of tweak that now and do it, but if Wizzo's working on it behind the scenes to make it even easier, awesome. I'm clearly a massive fan of the Tap2 project, and I just think having that tactile feedback, even if it's quite literally just tapping a card with an amazing label on it, thanks to Ariel for making all of those, then I think that's a win and people would really appreciate it. Next up, Hotego posted some development info regarding the Turtles in Time game. It was showed booting and playing some of the intro animation. I believe Furtek's taking a look to try to figure out if he can analyze the chips even more to see if they can get through some of those hurdles. But man, what a great group of people working on that. We might have Turtles in Time coming in the relative near future. Next up, somebody posted an easy cover for the QM Tech clone board. That's the other DE10 Nano alternative that I've been talking about that people have taken a look at, and check out Lou's video if you want more info. And now there's a pretty cool cover that you could just download. So thanks for that. Next up, RetroFrog is doing an interest check for a new Mr. case. It kind of has a feel of like a PC Engine case, and this one's also going to be HDMI only, no room for the analog stuff. But honestly, it looks awesome. So if you really only need HDMI, or if you already use direct video when you need analog, take a look at this, because I think if you're a fan of the PC Engine, maybe this is the case that you're going to want for your Mister. Next, Ronnie Snice also just showed off some new wallpapers for Mr. Landstalker, Bare Knuckle 3, and Golden Axe were what they were based off of. I say this every time, and I don't feel bad repeating myself. Just enable these wallpapers and update all. They're completely free. The worst possible thing that could happen is you go, not for me, and you just disable them. But I don't know anybody who said that. I think everybody who enables these really appreciate having them there. So thanks so much to Ronnie. And lastly, Dave Shadoff found a bug in the Mr. TurboGrafx 16 core that affected Fighting Run, where some of the sprites were showing up as the wrong colors. A pull request was submitted, so we'll have to wait until that's accepted. But thanks to Dave for always staying on top of this. His expertise in PC Engine has been a big help over the years, so it's really cool to see this stuff. Even small things, which, I'm not putting down what Dave just did. I'm just saying things like sprites are the wrong colors. That's probably not going to affect your ability to enjoy and beat the game, but it's still important. If we're really trying to chase after a great recreation of the original, stuff like that means a lot. So thanks very much, Dave. And that's it for the Mr. News this week. As always, thanks so much to Lou for keeping up with all of this stuff. I could never do it without him. Please support him on Patreon if you rely on Lou as much as I do. I support him, and I'm happy to. And once again, I know I'm going to catch crap for asking for caution for Takis boards. I'm not talking shit. I'm just trying to be a technical nerd that tells you how it is, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I misunderstood. I'm not trying to start a fight, although I guarantee as soon as this podcast goes up, I'm going to have a whole bunch more people dogpiling me for no reason. I want this thing to succeed. I just also want to be realistic about stuff. So cross our fingers. Hopefully I'll be able to buy one and start testing as soon as it's released, and hopefully it's just as awesome as we all hope. Next up, a professional voice actor named Salvi Garrido has been heading up a project that fully dubs the Resident Evil games to Spanish. So this is for the Saturn, PS1, and PC version, and a bunch of people got together to dub the entire thing, which might represent the first non-English fan dub of a Saturn game. And I have nothing but love for this. I always, as cheesy as it sounds, these translations really do make the world a smaller place. And I grew up with a bunch of friends and family members who English was not their first language. So while they could have enjoyed Resident Evil, it might have been easier for them to sit down and just kind of sink in and hear it in their native language. So being able to have stuff like this out there, I think, is super important. And I don't care if it's Afterburner, where you're translating 3 things, or if it's something like this, where it's a pretty big deal. They're all important, and I appreciate all of them so much. So thank you to the team that did this, and to everybody who does every kind of translation, because, nowadays it's just nice that everybody can be able to experience these games, not have language be a barrier for it. So genuinely, thank you very much. And if you want tons more info and a link to everything, check out Dan's post. Well, that's it for this week. I have had a ton of stuff going on. Plus, I'm trying to work on getting a video out before Retro World, so I haven't had as much time to work on posts. Thank you very much to the contributors of the site for stepping up to help. It's a really big deal, and I appreciate it very much. But it was a little light this week, and it might even be for the next week or so as well, because there's something I've been working on there's probably like 6 people around the world that are actually going to care, but I care a lot, so I want to get that video out. And there's another video that's actually going to probably help a lot of people. So they go together. It's my only hint. So you could probably figure it out based on all the crap I've been talking about lately. But so yeah, if I apologize if any of the weekly stuff has been a little light. As far as I know, we haven't missed anything like pre-orders or things that have real time-sensitive stuff going along with it. So please feel free to let me know if we missed anything. As always, it's nice if you do it politely, but if you're like, hey, dum-dum, you forgot about something real important, I'll still listen. So, but anyway, as always, thanks to everybody who watches, listens, plays nicely in the comments, especially last week. Thank you for all being nice to me. I was definitely out of my comfort zone. And especially thanks to anybody who supports in absolutely any way, because it really is you who's keeping all this stuff going. So thank you all so much, and I'll see you next week. This week's Roundup is brought to you by Neo Paradigm Entertainment, connecting Southeast Asian influencers with opportunities in the West.